Thank you. So my name is Björn. I work for Grafana, but for way longer I've been working with the Prometheus project. Always try to get the newer members to do those things, but this time it's just me. But we have actually a pretty nice community update. That's my first update. Prometheus is pretty old, older than Kubernetes actually, and sometimes it looks like it's a mature project where activity level plateaus, but last 12 months, we actually had a significant upkeep, and I think, according to CNCF dev stats, which is to be taken with a grain of salt, of course, the last 12 months were the most active year in Prometheus history, which is pretty good. Its activity level is like a normal, bigger CNCF project. It's not sticking out, but we are still sticking out as maybe the most used or second most used if you measure at GitHub stars, right? There are 2 CNCF projects in the top 100, and one is Prometheus. We got 25 new team members, which is almost doubled. It's the inner circle of Prometheus maintainers with voting rights and everything. So it's pretty big now. So we're also planning to having a new governance, which is accomplishes, how to phrase this, accommodates the scale we have, being even more welcoming. So there's a pull request. It's not quite there yet, but almost. So have a look if you like. Also, if you want to contribute, we have a Contrib Fest as part of KubeCon tomorrow, so you would be very welcome to join us there. Technical stuff, we got a V3 release a while ago, but still within the last year. Many, many things, too many to list here. Most visible is the new UI. We also, what I like most, we removed a bunch of feature flags that were all there because they were technically changing the behavior of Prometheus, being a breaking change, so now they have been cleaned up. But it's not a big breaking release, so easy migration, most of you will just upgrade and notice nothing. I mean, just enjoy, but no breaking changes, but there's a migration guide for these subtleties. We have a deep dive at KubeCon about V3 and beyond on Wednesday. It's also tomorrow, right? Yeah. Okay, native histograms were in the news quite often. So what's happened here? We have kind of a spec or complete documentation that has some to-dos about edge cases, but it's almost stable. Also a new nice feature, a native histogram with custom bucket boundaries, which is where you can just pick your bucket boundaries as you wish and not follow the standard exponential schema that you also know from OTel, exponential histograms. So you can actually ingest classic histograms as native histograms. So pretty cool thing. NHCB is our acronym for that. We have protocols updated. The big thing that's already live is Prometheus Remote Write 2.0, more features, more efficient. It's officially still experimental, but yeah, has been for almost a year, so more or less stable, same as native histograms. What's still in the making is OpenMetrics version 2, learning from all the version 1 issues. So that's busily discussed, but I thought I mentioned it here. You can also see that OpenMetrics is now officially back under the Prometheus umbrella. Yeah, for reasons. Okay, OpenTelemetry interoperability is very relevant to the conference today, of course. OTLP receiver is now stable in Prometheus, so you can send OTLP directly to Prometheus. A new experimental feature is the Delta 2 cumulative converter. It's now in Prometheus as well, so if you want to run it on Prometheus, you can, and you don't have to run it in the OTel collector. What's maybe more important is that Prometheus gave up on the very restrictive character set for metric and label names, so now you can use all of UTF-8, which is, of course, nice if you get OTel names that use all of UTF-8. There's a lot of stuff in the pipeline, explicit treatment of unit and type, a no translation mode, so you don't change metric names, unlocked by the UTF-8 support, improved handling of resource attributes, native support for Delta temporality, super busy topics right now, but yeah, not launch features, but to be expected quite soon. There's a talk about this, state of Prometheus and OpenTelemetry interoperability on Friday. And also, if you have any questions left now, at the Project Pavilion, booth 9A, we will be there all during KubeCon. You can ask us questions. Thank you very much. Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jose Lecaros. I work as a support engineer at Chronosphere, and I'm also a maintainer of Fluent Bit project. Fluent Bit, for those of you that might not know it, it's a project under the umbrella of the Fluent organization. The previously graduated project is Fluent. What we do, we know that telemetry data is growing at very big rates, and having a lot of data about your systems is a great thing, but it can also be a pain. And we try to solve these pains, like latency in collection, ingestion, and processing, among other things, like lack of standardization, which our friends from Prometheus and OpenTelemetry are trying to deal with as well. However, at the end of the day, what we really want to achieve is data analysis. And how we deal with this is through our proposition of collecting this data and pre-processing with Fluent Bit. We collect your data from many sources and many formats, log, metrics, traces, and now also profiling, to put this information together for the people that will take decisions based on this data analysis. And we also have to deal with the challenge of the microservices architecture and make all this data collection and processing scalable. And, of course, the user expectation of having great performance at no cost, right? So what is our proposal? To collect these different data sources and send it to any destination that you have? That's Fluent Bit. That's what we try to do. And we develop this based in some key principles. One is that it is optimized for speed and efficiency, meaning that we have a very low footprint and hence reducing the energy consumption. We are fully open source and vendor agnostic or vendor neutral. That means that we have support and integration with popular ecosystems like Prometheus and OpenTelemetry. We have an extensive plugin ecosystem, and you can deploy Fluent Bit in the cloud, on-premise, or edge deployment. Fluent Bit this year is turning 10 years old, so it's pretty ready for production, and it has been adopted by major cloud providers out there. So what is new in version 4, which we're releasing this week? We have implemented head sampling for your traces, meaning that at the beginning of receiving the data, you can take a decision and drop some of the traces that you're receiving. And we're also implementing tail sampling, which means you're going to buffer some of your traces and then take a decision based on conditions later on, whether to allow this data to go through or to drop it. Some time ago, we introduced log processors in Fluent Bit to improve efficiency, and now we're adding conditionals to this same. So you will only process those logs that match these conditions that you can introduce. As you can see, there are many operators there. In the security side, for TLS, we are enabling the ability to specify allow TLS versions and also to pick the ciphers for it. And we have also implemented much requested feature to set variables from the file system. And on the experimental side, we are adding support for the Zig language. This is in addition to the existing support for WASM, Go, and Lua scripting. And the advantage of this is that it will be using Fluent Bit internals via the new Zig SDK. That means you will need less code. It will be closer to C, hence improving interoperability. And why Zig? Because we think it's probably going to be the next Go Rust out there. For example, Go's TTY, if you know it, is written in Zig. We will have one talk at the maintainer track session. This will be on Friday. There will be Leo there. And we also are in the project pavilion, where you go and talk to us. Based in our mothers, we are nice people, so you can go there. And you can also grab the new Fluent Bit t-shirt that is there on the screen, and is also the one that I'm wearing. That's it. Thank you very much. Enjoy the conference. And next will be Jonah.
Thanks, John. Hey, everyone. Jonah Cowell. I'm the SVP of Product and Design at Pessler, and I'm here to give you some updates on Jaeger. We had a very exciting year, but first I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Jaeger does in case you're not familiar. I won't tell you about tracing because I think you've all heard that story many times. Jaeger is essentially an analytics and storage system for trace data. So we allow you to do data collection, storage, and then also visualization. So this is a view of a bunch of different traces coming into Jaeger and kind of how you visualize the data. You can drill down, get pretty deep into all of the data and constructs inside the traces. So this is how you would drill down into an issue and diagnose, for example, a database issue that you may be having. And it also helps you understand the performance of your application, where you can optimize it, how you can make it higher performing. So in this kind of case, putting some asynchronous calls or threading in your code would speed this application up, for example. So certain patterns are very easy to detect, and Jaeger makes it nice and easy to visualize that. We also have a lot of other visualizations besides your typical timeline. This is a flame graph view. There's lots of different ways to compare and analyze your trace data. Jaeger is generally agnostic, so there's lots of ways to do the data storage. We interoperate with other tracing systems very easily. And of course, OpenTelemetry is the main way to get your data into Jaeger. We have made a pretty big architecture change to Jaeger, which we officially launched version 2 late last year, right before KubeCon in the US. But I wanted to tell you about this big change because now we actually are very native to the entire OpenTelemetry ecosystem and the collector. We're still releasing version 1 and version 2 every month as maintainers, but version 1 will be deprecated by the end of this calendar year. So if you're still using Jaeger v1, it's time to move, and there's a lot of good reasons to move. We really rebuilt Jaeger around OpenTelemetry. So instead of having a Jaeger collector, we now have a modified version of the OpenTelemetry collector. And we've also rebuilt our storage APIs to be modern and fully integrated with OTel in the collector. We still support all of the storage in Jaeger v1, so if you have historical data, it'll still work with v2. Everything is compatible. All of the different data structures are that way. And now we support OTLP, OLTP natively, actually, in the storage system. So the way that we store, even though the schema may be different than some of the other solutions, we support that natively. We've also simplified things considerably. So we've made it so that the same binary, which is basically a modified version of the collector, can be used in a lot of different ways. So you could use it just to deal with storage. You could use it for data collection and sampling. There's a lot of different ways you can use it. So in the config, which you can see an example of here, this probably looks very familiar to many of you because it's essentially an OTel config with a few different components that we have built for Jaeger in order for it to work. We're doing some other interesting things like using the extension capability in the collector to expose our UI. So we've done a lot of really interesting things to extend the collector for lots of different use cases out there. So essentially, it's the same binary. The Jaeger collector can be deployed as a collector, as a querier. You can even use it for queuing and various other things. So this is kind of how the architecture looks with v2. It's very similar to v1, but things are a bit simpler in terms of just having different configs. So just one other piece is we've built span the ability to derive metrics from spans into the collector and into Jaeger. So we can emit data directly from Jaeger into Prometheus, and then we can visualize those inside our UI, or you can visualize them in Perses or Grafana or whatever you're using inside your metrics environment as well. But now it's fully integrated, so you don't have to make additional configurations. A couple key things that we've done since the last time I was here speaking in Europe. We've obviously done a lot of enhancements, modifications. We're supporting new backends like the latest versions of Elasticsearch, and we've done a lot of updates. We now have a Helm chart. We have a Kubernetes operator. We've made a lot of other improvements for Jaeger v2 specifically. You can now use Kafka natively because of the OTel support, which is improved over what we had in Jaeger v1 if you're dealing with queuing. And then we built a bunch of new capabilities in the UI. These are a few pieces that we built in the last year to make the UI better, make performance analysis better. And there's more coming. We have some really great stuff in the roadmap. New visualizations in the UI specifically for topologies, which are always really tricky with trace data. So we're actually redoing a lot of the UI for topology views, making things more seamless and streamlined. And then on the back-end side, we are adding official support for ClickHouse, so that's work in progress. And we're doing some interesting things with OpenSearch, like deriving metrics in real time versus having to calculate them. So lots of cool stuff coming. You'll definitely hear about it in the next 6 months because a lot of these are progressing. And that's kind of the quick update on what's going on. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Austin to give you an update on OTel. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. So, hello, everyone. I am Austin Parker, Director of Open Source at your friend and mine, Honeycomb.io, and a member of the OpenTelemetry Governance Committee. So, I want to briefly take you through a couple of quick updates on OpenTelemetry. Just for clarity's sake, who here doesn't know what OpenTelemetry is? You've heard it like 10 times already, so. Okay, no hands, right. Who's using OTel today? Oh, who wants to use OTel? All right, slightly less hands. So one thing that we've been working on really as a project is trying to maintain both a high rate of kind of fixing existing things, adding new features, dealing with some of the tech debt that has built up over the years. I mean, we are a 6-year-old project now, actually, which is a little wild to think about, while also nailing, sort of the last few big things in flight, like our new logging APIs, entities, all sorts of stuff. So I want to take you through what's a smattering of releases over the past, 6 months, give or take. We just recently released the first 2.0 version of an SDK. This was in JavaScript. There's a migration guide for it. If you've tried to use the JavaScript in or the JS SDK in OTel in instances like front ends where there's a lot of client bundlers and things, you should find that experience is extremely better with SDK 2.0 because it allows for things like tree shaking and a lot of other good stuff. We also released a new version of the OpenTelemetry demo, the astronomy shop with the telescopes. There's been a lot of enhancements to OTTL, the transform language in the collector that you can use to process and modify telemetry in flight. We've launched a Go compile time instrumentation SIG with participation from several different companies that are all working to improve the ability to add observability or telemetry data to Go applications at compile time. And along with that, we're continuing to work on system-level profiling. We have a continuous profiler that is part of the project now. That is continuing to be worked on. Kind of concomitantly with that, we're working to align eBPF-based instrumentation across these various different things so that hopefully in the future there'll be just kind of one answer, one thing to install that can give you all of that instrumentation goodness. We are continuing to push forward with generative AI semantic conventions. One thing that's been really cool to see, just personally, is an OTel maintainer, but also as a developer, is noticing that this entire new wave of generative AI libraries and frameworks and everything are coming out of the box with tracing. They're coming out of the box with OpenTelemetry built in. This is kind of the first new thing, I guess you could say, in software since OTel started. So it's great to see that that community is embracing OpenTelemetry as a single way to get telemetry about Gen AI systems. One thing that I added to this that I didn't refresh the slides, so whoops. But we also, just yesterday, released the second release candidate of our database semantic conventions. So unless there's something horrible that happens, then those will become stable in the next release, probably a month or so, which will make our second big chunk of stable semantic conventions. So hats off to all the SemConv people out there. You all are doing the Lord's work. Finally, we've done a lot of work to have surveys about developer experience for OTel APIs, SDKs. We've been talking to our maintainers and contributors to see how they're doing. A lot of interesting stuff that's come out of those surveys, which we will talk more about later this week at our maintainers track session, which I'll tell you about later. In case you missed it, we've been working with the CNCF to improve the amount of training and certification options for OTel users. So it's still in beta, I think. I don't know if it's final, but we have the OpenTelemetry Certified Associate, and then we have there's a actually free Getting Started with OTel course available through Linux Foundation Education. And when I was putting this together, I wanted to take a look at our data, and obviously this is DevStat, so as earlier, grain of salt. But I really loved looking at this EMEA line. And in fact, we have around 50% of our contributors are now based out of somewhere that isn't the United States. And we have been there for a while. So thanks. One piece of feedback we've kind of consistently gotten is that the observability and OpenTelemetry community in Europe is looking for more stuff. More community, ways to connect with the community, more maintainers meetings, more and friendlier times. So we have OTel Community Day in June this year, and I cannot confirm or deny anything, but you might want to keep a block of time open at the end of August, because there might be one coming to Amsterdam this year as well. If not this year, definitely next year, but we're really working to get it this year. So just to wrap up, there's a lot more that I didn't cover here. A lot of it we will talk about in our project update and Q&A, which is at 11:15 a.m. on Wednesday. You can also come find maintainers and SIGs and a whole bunch of OTel contributors at the OpenTelemetry Observatory, which is in the project pavilion, not project pavilion, it's in the expo floor. I think S400, it's listed on the thing as Splunk Activation Zone. Still working on getting that fixed. We have ContribFest this week, 6:15 on Wednesday, and if you're interested in helping improve the security of OpenTelemetry projects, we're participating in the Security Slam with CNCF Tag Security. So that'll be at 14:30 on Wednesday in the Project Pavilion. We have a bunch of issues open that you can work through, and I believe that people, like if you do, I know there's prizes for working on this, so if you would like some prizes, come by Wednesday at the Project Pavilion and we'll tell you all about it. With that said, hand over to Friedrich to talk about Cortex.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm Friedrich Gonzalez. I'm a software engineer at Adobe. I am also a Cortex user, became Cortex maintainer, became Cortex speaker, and thankful. Who knows Cortex here? Can I see your hand? Okay, so I don't have to introduce Cortex too much, I guess. Right. So a quick recap on the features that we think Cortex provides. I mean, if you must know, Cortex is a Prometheus API that is horizontally scalable, that you can deploy. That's one of the major features that we have for Cortex. The next one is the ability to respond in time with low response time for all the queries. There's a lot of capabilities in Cortex regarding caching that allows you to achieve that possibility. And the other thing that Cortex provides that we're really happy to mention is the strong stability guarantees. This is about offering the Prometheus API features, but also offering experimental features that we think make sense, but always under the guise of their experimental, so you know when you're using something experimental. We move some of those features out of experimental into stability when they're ready to become stable. The other feature of Cortex is it started as a project for Weaveworks. Weaveworks is a company that is no longer around, but Cortex continues to be a project supported by the community, by maintainers, number of maintainers from multiple companies. So all the features in Cortex are something that the community decides, and also the roadmap as well. I don't want to discuss the last 3 releases we had last week, because then we will be talking a lot. Since last year, since last KubeCon, because then it's going to be a lot to talk about. I'm only going to focus only in the features that we have since November, which is the latest release we have. We have 19 new features, 58 enhancements, and 26 bug fixes. The first features that we think is important from this is the time series partitioning in the compactor, is the ability to scale the compactor even bigger than before. There is a talk coming up on KubeCon that you should watch out. I'm going to show you quickly where that talk is, but it's about performance, and it's about making Cortex reach 1 billion active series in a cluster. Also, in terms of this release, we have OTLP ingestions improvements and limits. You can also, on top of the limits that we have pertaining in Cortex, we added new limits that are specific to OTLP. So this improves the feature set that the OTL users can use in Cortex. Also, a long-time feature coming up to us is the ruler high availability. One of the major promises of Cortex is that you can restart any component without losing metrics or without losing samples. And this was a last feature that we needed to put in the ruler, and this feature just made this landed in this release, and now it's available to use. It's experimental, but you can start using it. Also in this release, we have 20% CPU usage reduction, which is massive when you run large Cortex. So it's almost like you can reduce 20% your build on your cloud bill. And the last feature that I have here is the read-only ingesters. It's also a feature about scaling Cortex massively. This is to simplify the scaling down. I have more features to talk about, but I chose not to show them because it would be boring. So let's move to what's coming up with Cortex. I don't want to repeat some of the features that was mentioned for Prometheus. I just want to point out that major features that land in Prometheus also land in Cortex. We work on them at the same time. We contribute also Thanos as well. We have maintainers that are Cortex maintainers, Thanos maintainers, so there's a lot of interaction within the projects. So we also currently working on native histogram ingestion as well as remote write v2, and as well as OTLP metadata ingestion. So this is currently working on. This is, of course, work that's been done by the community. If you have a feature that you need in Cortex, you can come up also as well. These are the talks that are coming. And I want to mention the first one because it's about running Cortex at massive scale. The folks of Amazon use Cortex for the AMP service that they provide, and you can get to see how massive Cortex can be used. If you are more into the features that you can use as a new user, or if you're a long-time user of Cortex and you want to learn more about what's happening in Cortex, latest insights, updates, I suggest you come to the last the last talk that I have here, that is on Friday. You're welcome to join as well. And yeah, so I'm happy to talk to you. Also, we have a kiosk only in the mornings, starting tomorrow. Some maintainers are going to be there. If you have questions for us, if you have any kind of request, just come say hi. We're there to talk to you. Thank you very much. Moving to Doran.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Hey everyone. I'm Dotan Horvitz. I'm a senior developer advocate at the AWS open source team, so it was cool to see the talk there from the AWS folks involved with the Cortex. I'm also the chief evangelist, I guess, for the OpenSearch project, which is why I'm here. And some know me also from my podcast, the Open Observability talk, so that's why I love this conference. And I want to talk to you about OpenSearch. That's the first time that we present OpenSearch here, so unlike others, maybe I'll give it just a brief recap. OpenSearch started 4 years ago as a fork of Elasticsearch 7.10, which was the last Apache 2.0 release of that project, that and Kibana, before they were relicensed to a non-open source project. The community wanted to keep it open, and AWS took the challenge and created that fork. That was 4 years ago. And as you can see by the numbers, the project has gone a long way since then. We got a groundswell of support from the community. See the project partners, the contributors, organizations involved, the members on our different channels, user forums, Slack. So really exciting to see. And the biggest news on the project came from Open Source Summit back in last September, when OpenSearch became part of the Linux Foundation. How many know that it's a Linux Foundation foundational project? Okay. So yeah, it's a foundational project now. We've established the OpenSearch Software Foundation as a non-profit under the Linux Foundation, essentially to foster the open collaboration, the open governance, and all of that. And really excited to see many important companies that have joined the foundation. You see big names here. ByteDance here, I just added the logo, just joined about a week ago. So really an active community, all working together to make it a community-driven project. So that was about the community, just for you to know where it is, and very briefly about what OpenSearch stack is. So the core, obviously, is the distributed search engine that's based on Apache Lucene. Essentially, the ability to index and store documents, semi-structured, unstructured documents, and also, very importantly, a vector database included in that. Then there's the OpenSearch dashboards. That's essentially the UI, UX part of creating visualizations, querying the data, managing the data. And lastly, there's the data prepper that allows for an easy ingestion, transformation of the data into OpenSearch. That in a nutshell. And now that we understand the stack, obviously there's the ecosystem around that. You'll recognize a few of the logos from folks here in the project. Lots of ways and integration with tools and projects with which you can ingest from, you can store, you can visualize, and obviously wanting to grow that. This is why we want to talk to you folks. And now that you understand the stack, let's talk about the updates. So what's new with version 2.0? The latest minor release is 2.19. And there's a lot that is going on. Like the other speaker said, too many to put everything here, but just a few notable items, especially on the observability side, because it's also used for search, for AI ML. I'm not going into all of these sides of activities, but Apache Spark integration, we talked about the ecosystem, parallel ingestion processing, enhanced anomaly detection. We've also we've been putting a lot of emphasis on the UI UX side of the house. In the last year, we released the version 2.0 of the Discover experience, for those who don't know the Discover UI. So that one, and the workspace tools that allows you easy ability to share and manage the observability data across your team. So that's on version 2.0. Also, considerable focus has gone on performance. We know that users come to OpenSearch to be able to manage, store, and query massive amounts of volumes of data, and that comes with a premium. So a lot of, both on the real-timeness of searches, but also on storage and so on. So as you can see, a lot has been put, a lot of effort on the indexing throughput, query latency, storage disk space, and much more. And now let's go on to the most exciting thing. Next month, we're going to release version 3.0, the next major release. 3.0 will come out in May. Lots of things are expected there. Sorry. I guess the most important thing, first and foremost, is updating Apache Lucene to the latest version, V10. Obviously, this is also a breaking change, so we needed to wait for that for the next major release. Lots of goodies will come with the new Apache Lucene. Then streaming data aggregation, gRPC and protobuf support for Apache Arrow, Apache Flight frameworks, writable warm indexes, and much more. So for the sake of time, really, we want to talk to you. Let's talk. We have a booth here at Observability Day. They're happy to talk to you. We also have an even bigger booth at the main KubeCon in the Expo Hall for the OpenSearch project. So do come, join us. We're looking for more contributions, more contributors, more integrations, more ecosystem. And you're the right folks to talk with. So do feel free to reach out to us. And for the online, I've put one QR code that puts everything in, the GitHub, the Slack, forums, tech docs, OpenSearch.org website, and anything else, all listed in this one QR code. So feel free to check it out. And yeah, looking forward to working with you in this one.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Matej. I work as observability engineer at Eon Digital Technology, but I'm as well a member of the Thanos project. So let's look at some Thanos updates. First, just shortly, if you don't know Thanos, Thanos is a Prometheus setup with high availability and long-term storage capabilities. It gives you a global query view, so it means you can query multiple Prometheus instances. It gives you a long-term storage, as I was mentioning, so you have unlimited retention. It gives you a Prometheus-compatible API, so you can use it in your favorite visualization tools, such as Grafana or Persys. It offers downsampling and compaction, which gives you a possibility to query over longer time ranges with more ease. Now, what we've been up to since last year, first of all, although this was already part of the last KubeCon EU, but I think it's worth mentioning, we organized our first very own ThanosCon. This was a half-day event, which was a lot of fun. We had talks from teams from different companies, from Cloudflare, from Shopify, Red Hat, Reddit, and I think there was a lot of interesting insights and knowledge to be learned from some of the biggest setups of Thanos in the world, so I encourage you to check it out. I think a lot of those lessons are still valid. And in the meantime, we also had 3 minor releases from 0.35 to 0.37, and there's an incoming one. And as of this morning, actually, there is a second release candidate for 0.38. So as well, please go check it out, try it out, and give us a feedback. We also added over 20 features. So here I will just mention a couple of them. And we're also working tirelessly on ensuring that Thanos is stable and performant. So we oftentimes release also patch versions to make sure that we fix any issues that we find on as we go with our usual development cycles. Probably one of the more exciting things coming in the release I was mentioning, 0.38, is we're going to support ingestion through the OTLP protocol, through the HTTP-based endpoint. So whereas usually you would use the remote write to write to the receiver, this was the only option until now. But from the version 0.38, we'll also be supporting the OTLP. So if you want to use it or if you prefer it, you now feel free to write directly from sources that use OTLP. Another big thing, and also what was mentioned during the Prometheus update by Bjorn, work on native histogram support. This is something that we've been following since the day one, since it was announced and available in Prometheus itself. It was quite a big chunk of work to make this, to support this in all of the components. But now I think with the last component being the compactor, this is now supported throughout Thanos. So I think this is also a big chunk of work that has been done and that I think we can be proud of. And last but not least, a bit of older, but nevertheless still very exciting update is for the receiver component, where we have a replication in the receiver, so you can use a new special protocol called Captain Proto, which you can use as an alternative to the more traditional protobuf format, and it has some pretty exciting improvements in terms of performance, and it puts a less strain on garbage collection. And there are many more updates that I encourage you to check on your own. One that I will mention myself is the distributed query execution, which was kind of a hidden feature, but now it's available since a couple of versions to the end users. So if you know, Thanos has also its own implementation of the Prometheus, of the PromQL engine. So if you use this, you can also enable a so-called distributed query execution, which will make it possible to fragment the query into smaller queries and query independent query components individually. So lastly, if you want to learn more about Thanos itself or some of these features, if you want to talk to us, we're here at the KubeCon. We're here every morning in the pavilion in the kiosk 10A. So please come talk to us. And of course, we're reachable online. You can find us on the usual channels in the Slack, Thanos or Thanos Dev, GitHub, of course, if you want to open an issue or contribute, as well as our website, where you can find all of the other links and interesting resources. With that, thank you, and we'll move on to our last update.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Anna. You saw me today already. I work at Icevalent on, widely speaking, observability things. And today I'm gonna give updates about Cilium project and projects under Cilium umbrella. So there are a few projects under Cilium organization. Cilium, Hubble, Tetragon are the most recognized one. They all use eBPF as underlying technology. And there is also eBPF Go library, a Go library for loading and managing eBPF programs. It's a project that we don't talk about much. It's used by both Cilium, CNI, and Tetragon for loading eBPF programs. But today I want to start updates with this project because it supports Windows now. So I'm not gonna talk much about how eBPF is used in observability, but it is used by many observability projects these days to provide full visibility with low overhead and with no instrumentation. But so far, it was Linux only, right? eBPF is Linux technology. eBPF for Windows is a thing. It's not production ready yet. To use eBPF for Windows, you have to disable Windows security features, which you probably don't want to use in production. But we are working with eBPF for Windows maintainers to make it production ready, to make it available for observability projects to use to provide same seamless observability like we can do for Linux. So yeah, eBPF Go now supports Windows. You can load eBPF programs using Go on Windows. And we are using this library in the Tetragon project, so Windows support is coming to Tetragon too. Tetragon provides visibility mainly in security context, but it's a generic tool that can provide eBPF-based observability for anything happening in the kernel. And in the next release, that will happen in June, a 1.5 release, it will have initial Windows support with tracing of process create and process exit events, so tracing of process execution on Windows. So for those of you who are stuck with this one database running on Windows that you can't migrate because it's a database and you have no visibility into because all observability projects are Linux only, that's something you probably want to take a look at, and stay tuned because more is coming in this area. Okay, yeah, from other updates, still in the Tetragon area, this is quite exciting. So we like to talk, developers of eBPF-based observability tools, we often talk how eBPF provides low overhead. But if you ask us what is exactly the overhead, many people are like, it's low. It's low, but it's often not measured well, right? What we often do is we do benchmarks. That's we compare a system without a tool running. Then we install Tetragon, and we compare like CPU usage and calculate the difference. We did some benchmarks, but like these are only benchmarks run in one specific environment, right? We didn't monitor CPU usage and memory usage of BPF maps continuously very well. So this has changed. The new Tetragon release measures exact CPU usage and memory usage of eBPF programs and eBPF map. So we can see exact CPU usage down to particular BPF program. You can see how many times it was executed. So this information is available as a CLI and as a regular Prometheus metrics. So you can graph it and monitor like resources usage of regular user space programs now. From another project, Hubble, which is a visibility layer for Cilium CNI and Cilium service mesh. One interesting feature that will be released in the next Cilium release is dynamic metrics configuration. So Hubble allows you to dynamically configure events exporting events to as JSON to a file. Now you will be able to also dynamically configure metrics. So instead of writing like static and complicated configuration in the hand chart, you have this dynamically loaded config map where you can also configure filtering. So you have this finely grained configuration for that allows you to control manage metrics cardinality, which for networking metrics can blow up very easily, as we all know. And talk to us. Come talk to us. We have a maintainer track session tomorrow afternoon at 3:15. So we'll talk there about Cilium CNI, Cilium Service Mesh, Hubble, Tetragon. And you can find us all KubeCon in the project pavilion, the kiosk with Cilium logo. You will find it. So yeah, come talk to us. If you are interested in Windows, for example, we are happy to answer any questions. And if you are interested in contributing, we are more than happy to help you get started. After the KubeCon, stay in touch. We have community meetings. Cilium has community meeting every week on Wednesdays, and there is also an APAC slot that's happening monthly. There's separate Tetragon community meeting that's happening monthly. You can find information about those in the READMEs, project READMEs on GitHub or in the documentation. There is also Cilium and eBPF Slack. So if you are interested in these projects or more widely in eBPF, then find us there and come and chat.